All right, chat. So, how we doing today? How's everybody's day? Coming back. 48 laws of power. Going again. Staying consistent. We're consistent with it. So, I mean, um, we are on law number 2. I don't know if you remember where we left off last time, but the first law basically was talking about never outshining your master. Um, Sometimes it's more dangerous to show that you're reliable to somebody, um, or they might think that you're too reliable. So you have to really be careful about who you're showing, and make sure that you're watching and watching the person in power and kind of gauging them, making sure that you're not standing out too much and that you're not really a threat to them. And as soon as they get in a position, and while doing that, you quietly, do things in the background, bide your time. And when they start losing their power, because power always fades, that's when you strike, and you rise up, and you feel me, become competent, and kind of go around that person, and you become the master. So, all right, now, how was y'all's week? It's Wednesday, so you feel me? We're reading. How's everything going? Talk to me in the comments. I want to know. So, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Make sure you leave a like, share with a friend, go ahead, subscribe, turn on the bell. We post every day, something new every day. So, I'm gonna get started on law number 2. Never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Judgment. Be wary of friends. They will betray you more quickly, for they are easily aroused to envy. They also become spoiled and tyrannical. But hire a former enemy, and he will be more loyal than a friend, because he has more to prove. In fact, you have more to fear from friends than from enemies. If you have no enemies, find a way to make them. Now, I'm actually turning this down a little bit because this is a little bit loud for me. Alright. Transgressions of the law. In the mid ninth century AD, a young man named Michael III assumed the throne of the Byzantine Empire. His mother, the Empress Theodora, had been banished to a nunnery, and her lover, Theoctatus, had been murdered. At the head of the conspiracy to depose Theodora and enthrone Michael had been Michael's uncle, Bardas, a man of intelligence and ambition. Michael was now a young and experienced ruler, surrounded by intriguers, murderers, and profligates. In this time of peril, he needed someone he could trust as his counselor, and his thoughts turned to Basilis, his best friend. Basilis had no experience whatsoever in government and politics. In fact, he was the head of the royal stables, but he had proven his love and gratitude time and again. To have a good enemy, choose a friend. He knows where to strike. D&D Poteris. They had met a few years before, when Michael had been visiting the stables just as a wild horse got loose. Basilis, a young groom from peasant Macedonia stock, had saved Michael's life. The groom's strength and courage had impressed Michael, who immediately raised Basilis from the obscurity of being a horse trainer to the position of head of the stables. He loaded his friends with gifts and favors, and they became inseparable. Basilius was sent to the finest school in Byzantium, and the crude peasant became a cultured and sophisticated courtier. Now, Michael was emperor and in need of someone loyal, who could he who could be who could who could he better trust with the post of chamberlain and chief counselor than a young man who owed him everything. Basilis, who could be trained for the job, and Michael loved him like a brother. Ignoring the advice of those who recommended the much more qualified Bardas, Michael chose his friend. Basilis learned well and was soon advising the emperor on all matters of state. The only problem seemed to be money. Basilis never had enough. Exposure to the splendor of Byzantine court life made him avaricious, avaricious for the perks of power. Michael doubled, then tripled his salary, ennobled him, and married him off to his own mistress, Eudoxia Ingenera. Keeping him such a trusted friend and advisor satisfied was worth any price. But more trouble was to come. Bardas was now head of the army, and Basilius convinced Michael that the man was hopelessly ambitious. Under the illusion that he could control his nephew, Bardas had conspired to put him on the throne. He could conspire again, this time to get rid of him on the throne, and he could get rid of Michael and assume the crown himself. Basilius poured poison into Michael's ear until the emperor agreed to have his uncle murdered. During a great horse race, Basilius closed in on Bardas in the crowd and stabbed him to death. Soon after, Basilius asked that he replace Bardas as head of the army, where he could keep control of the realm and quell rebellion. This was granted. Now Basilius's power and wealth only grew, and a few years later, Michael, in financial straits from his own extravagance, asked him to pay back some of the money he had borrowed over the years. To Michael's shock and astonishment, Basilius refused, with a look of such impudence that the emperor suddenly realized his predicament. The formal stable boy had more money, more allies in the army and senate, and in the end more power than the emperor himself. A few weeks later, after a night of heavy drinking, Michael awoke to find himself surrounded by soldiers. Basilius watched as they stabbed the emperor to death. Then, after proclaiming himself emperor, he rode his horse through the streets of Byzantium, brandishing the head of his former benefactor and best friend at the end of a long pike. Oh, that scared me. Sorry. Interpretation. Michael III stakes his future on the sense of gratitude he thought Basilius must feel for him. Surely, Basilius would serve him best. He owed the emperor his wealth, his education, and his position. Then, once Basilius was in power, anything he needed it was best to give to him, strengthening the bonds between the two men. It was on the fateful day when the emperor saw the impudent smile on Basilius's face that he realized his deadly mistake. He had created a monster. He had allowed a man to see power up close, a man who then wanted more, who asked for anything and got it, who felt encumbered by the charity he had received and simply did what many people do in such a situation. They forget the favors they have received and imagine they have earned their success by their own merits. At Michael's moment of realization, he could still have saved his own life, but friendship and love blind every man to their interests. Nobody believes a friend can betray, and Michael went on disbelieving until the day his head ended up on a pike. The snake, the farmer, and the heron. Okay, this is a short story. A snake chased by hunters asked a farmer to save its life, to hide it from its pursuers. The farmer squatted and let the snake crawl into his belly. But when the danger had passed and the farmer asked the snake to come out, the snake refused. It was warm and safe inside. On his way home, the man saw a heron and went up to it and whispered what had happened. The heron told him to squat and strain to eject the snake. When the snake snuck its head out, the heron caught it, pulled it out, and killed it. The farmer was worried the snake's poison might still be inside him, and the heron told him that the cure for snake's poison was to cook and eat 6 white fowl. "You're a white fowl," said the farmer. "You'll do for a start." He grabbed the heron, put it in a bag, and carried it home, where he hung it up while he told his wife what had happened. "I'm surprised at you," said the wife. The bird does you a kindness, rids you of the evil in your belly, saves your life, in fact. Yet you catch it and talk of killing it." She immediately released the heron, and it flew away. But on its way, it gouged out her eyes. Moral: when you see water flowing uphill, it means that someone is repaying a kindness. Okay. Observance of the law. For several centuries after the fall of Han Dynasty, AD 222, Chinese history followed the same pattern of violent and bloody coups, one after the other. Army men would plot to kill a weak emperor, then would replace him on the dragon throne with a strong general. The general would start a new dynasty and crown himself emperor. To ensure his own survival, he would kill off his fellow generals. A few years later, however, the pattern would resume. New generals would rise up and assassinate him, or his sons in their turn. To be emperor of China was to be alone, surrounded by a pack of enemies. It was the least powerful, least secure position in the realm. In AD 959, General Chao Kuang-yin became Emperor Sung. He knew the odds, the probability that within a year or two he would be murdered. How could he break the pattern? Soon after becoming emperor, Sung ordered a banquet to celebrate the new dynasty and invited the most powerful commanders in the army. After they had drunk much wine, he dismissed the guards and everybody else except the generals, who now feared he would murder them in one fell swoop. Instead, he addressed them. The whole day is spent in fear, and I am unhappy both at the table and in my bed. For which one of you does not dream of ascending the throne? I do not doubt your allegiance, but if by some chance your subordinates seeking wealth and position were to force the emperor's yellow robe upon you in turn, how could you refuse it? Drunk and fearing for their lives, the generals proclaimed their innocence and their loyalty, but Sung had other ideas. The best way to pass one's day is in peaceful enjoyment of riches and honor. If you're willing to give up your commands, I am ready to provide you with the fine estates and beautiful dwellings where you may take your pleasures with singers and girls as your companions. The astonished generals realized that instead of life of anxiety and struggle, Sung was offering them riches and security. The next day, all of the generals tendered their resignations, and they retired as nobles to the estates that Sung bestowed on them. In one strike, Sung turned a pack of friendly wolves who would likely have betrayed him into a group of docile lambs, far from all power. Over the next few years, Sung continued his campaign to secure his rule. In AD 971, King Liu of the Southern Han family surrendered to him after years of rebellion. To Liu's astonishment, Sung gave him a rank in the imperial court and invited him to the palace to seal their newfound friendship with wine. As King Liu took the glass that Sung offered him, he hesitated, fearing it contained poison. Your subjects' crimes certainly merit death, he cried out, but I beg your majesty to spare your subject's life. Indeed, I dare not drink this wine. Emperor Sung laughed, took the glass from Liu, and swallowed it himself. There was no poison. From then on, Liu became his most trusted and loyal friend. At the time, China had splintered into smaller kingdoms. When Qian Shu, the king of one of those, was defeated, Sung's ministers advised the emperor to lock this rebel up. They presented documents proving that he was still conspiring to kill Sung. When Qian Shu came to visit the emperor, however, instead of locking him up, Sung honored him. He also gave him a package, which he told the former king to open when he was halfway home. Qian Shu opened the bundle of his return journey and saw that it contained all the papers documenting his conspiracy. He realized that Sung knew of his murderous plans, yet had spared him nonetheless. This generosity won him over, and he too became one of Sung's most loyal vassals. Not bad. Interpretation. A Chinese proverb compares friends to the jaws and teeth of dangerous animals. If you are not careful, you will find them chewing you up. Emperor Sung knew the jaws he was passing between when he assumed the throne. His friends and the army would chew him up like meat, and if he somehow survived, his friends and the government would have him for supper. Emperor Sung would have no truck with friends. He bribed his fellow generals with splendid estates and kept them far away. This was a much better way to emasculate them than killing him, which would only have led other generals to seek vengeance, and Sung would have nothing to do with friendly ministers. More often than not, they would end up drinking his famous cup of poisoned wine. Instead of relying on friends, Sung used his enemies, one after the other, transforming them into far more reliable subjects. While a friend expects more and more favors and seethes with jealousy, these former enemies expect nothing and got everything. A man suddenly spared the guillotine is a grateful man indeed, and will go to the ends of the earth for the man who has pardoned him. In time, these former enemies became Sung's most trusted friends, and Sung was finally able to break the pattern of coups, violence, and civil war. The Sung dynasty ruled China for more than 300 years. In a speech Abraham Lincoln delivered at the height of the Civil War, he referred to the Southerners as fellow human beings who were in error. An elderly lady chastised him for not calling them irreconcilable enemies who must be destroyed. "Why, madam," Lincoln replied, "do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" That's a really good point. All of that saying kind of just, all of that just to say, like, the people closest to you can stab you in the back as well. If anything, they're more likely to stab you in the back because of the fact that you're not looking at them. Whenever you have enemies, right? You're looking at your enemies. You're aware of them. You're keeping track of them. But whenever you have friends, you're not thinking of it. So it goes to show you. And here's the thing: you can have friends. This book is not saying don't have friends. He's not saying don't have friends. He's just saying keep your enemies close, or keep your friends. Okay, all right. I'm not gonna try to sound too philosophical. Right now we're at 15 minutes. I'm gonna do a little bit more reading. It's not bad, right? This isn't bad. I'm sorry if me stuttering and stuff is bothering you. If you watch the first video, you'll see I've gotten so much better. And it's literally been like, for you guys it's been 3 weeks. For me it's been a day. So I mean, all this is me improving in a day. Um, so yeah. Uh, if you made it this far, go ahead, like, subscribe. I'm about to finish up this chapter. I got about 2 more pages. If you want to just chill. So that what we just read, right, is what happens when this law is not followed. You saw that he was getting backstabbed. He got backstabbed by his own best friend, the one that he brought up from nothing. He brought him all the way up, and then he backstabbed him and became emperor. We saw what happened when the law is used correctly. When the emperor of the dynasty, I'm sorry, I'm bad at remembering stuff, but I remember the overall arching theme was his enemies, he gave them wine. He didn't give them death. He gave them wine. He didn't give them poison. He gave them juice, right? So kind of in a sense of like how you might not be religious, I am, but how Jesus, all the people that stabbed him in the back, even Judas, right? Jesus told him, he was like, hey, like I know you did this, bro. I know you're doing this. I know you're stabbing me in the back. I love you anyway. I'm gonna treat you right anyway. And that is the way. That is the proper way to kind of not manipulate. I guess you could say manipulate, but that is the proper way to ensure your safety. Is to conform people, to change them to where they owe you. They feel like they cannot betray you. They almost feel like they forever are indebted to you because of the fact that you were the bigger person, and you stopped. So this could also apply to things without, like, throughout your life, where somebody wrongs you, your friend wrongs you, or a girl, or something like that, and you know that they're wronging you. Bring it up. Bring it up to them. Say, hey, I am aware of this. Bring it up to them. Make it right with them, and then show them, hey, like after this, we're good. Now that doesn't mean forget it. Okay, keep it in the back of your mind. Keep watching it, and keep listening, because at the end of the day, like, they'll do it once, they could do it again. However, these people are going to, after you use this law, these people are going to show you more loyalty than they have before. So, and if they don't, then that means that you really gotta watch them. You really gotta, because if they're not almost feeling like indebted to you, then that person, they're probably gonna be an even worse enemy than they were before. So, keys to power. It is natural to want to employ your friends when you find yourself in times of need. The world is a harsh place, and your friends soften the harshness. Besides, you know them. Why depend on a stranger when you have a friend at hand? The problem is that you often do not know your friends as well as you imagine. Friends often agree on things in order to avoid an argument. They cover up their unpleasant qualities so as to not offend each other. They laugh extra hard at each other's jokes. Since honesty rarely strengthens friendship, you may never know how a friend truly feels. Friends will say that they love your poetry, adore your music, envy your taste in clothes. Maybe they mean it. Often they do not. When you decide to hire a friend, you gradually discover the qualities he or she has kept hidden. Strangely enough, it is your act of kindness that unbalances everything. People want to feel that they deserve their good fortune. My bad. People want to feel that they deserve their good fortune. The receipt of a favor can become oppressive. It means you have been chosen because you are a friend, not necessarily because you are deserving. There is almost a touch of condescension in the act of hiring friends that secretly afflicts them. The injury will come out slowly. A little more honesty, flashes of resentment, and envy here and there, and before you know it, your friendship fades. The more favors and gifts you supply to revive the friendship, the less gratitude you receive. Ingratitude has a long and deep history. It has demonstrated its powers for so many centuries that hold on, I'm sorry it keeps bumping into this. It's because I'm trying to like be close to the mic because I'm just chilling. I'm not too hyped up, too antsy today. I think it's the jazz. I'm not like sleepy, but I'm just vibing. So, um, ingratitude has a long and deep history. It has demonstrated its powers for so many centuries that it's truly amazing that people continue to underestimate them. Better to be wary if you never expect gratitude from a friend. You will be pleasantly surprised when they do prove grateful. The problem with using or hiring friends is that it will inevitably limits your power. The friend is rarely the one who is most able to help you, and in the end, skill and competence are far more important than friendly feelings. Michael III had a man right under his nose who would have steered him right and kept him alive. That man was Bardas. All working situations require a kind of distance between people. You are trying to work, not make friends. Friendliness, real or fake, only obscures that fact. The key to power, then, is the ability to judge who is best able to further your interest in all situations. Keep friends for friendships, but work with the skilled and competent. Your enemies, on the other hand, are an untapped gold mine that you must learn to exploit. When Talleyrand, Napoleon's foreign minister, decided in 1807 that his boss was leading France to ruin and the time had come to turn against him, he understood the dangers of conspiring against the emperor. He needed a partner, a confederate. What friend could he trust in such a project? He chose Joseph Fauch, head of the secret police, his most hated enemy, a man who had even tried to have him assassinated. He knew that their former hatred would create an opportunity for emotional reconciliation. He knew that Foch would expect nothing from him, and in fact would work to prove that he was worthy of Talleyrand's choice. A person who has something to prove will move mountains for you. Finally, he knew that his relationship with Foch would be based on mutual self-interest and would not be contaminated by personal feelings. The selection proved perfect. Although the conspirators did not succeed in toppling Napoleon, the union of such powerful but unlikely partners generated much interest in the cause. Opposition in the emperor slowly began to spread, and from then on, Talleyrand and Foch had a fruitful working relationship. Whenever you can, bury the hatchet with an enemy and make a point of putting him in your service. As Lincoln said, you destroy an enemy when you make a friend of him. In 1971, during the Vietnam War, Henry Kissinger was the target of an unsuccessful kidnapping attempt, a conspiracy involving, among others, the renowned anti-war activists, priests, the Berrigan brothers, 4 more Catholic priests, and 4 nuns. In private, without informing the secret police, or the Secret Service, or the Justice Department, Kissinger arranged a Saturday morning meeting with 3 of the alleged kidnappers, explaining to his guests that he would have most American soldiers out of Vietnam by mid-1972. He completely charmed them. They gave him some kidnapped Kissinger. They gave him some kidnapped Kissinger buttons, and one of them remained a friend of his for years, visiting him on several occasions. This was not just a one-time ploy. Kissinger made a policy of working with those who disagreed with him. Colleagues commented that he seemed to be getting along better with his enemies than with his friends. Without enemies around us, we grow lazy. As enemies at our heels sharpens our wits, keeping us focused and alert. It is sometimes better than to use our enemies as enemies rather than transforming them into friends or allies.
Order filled.
Mao Zedong saw conflict as key in his approach to power. In 1937, the Japanese invaded China, interrupting the civil war between Mao's communists and their enemy, the nationalists. Fearing that the Japanese would wipe them out, some communistic leaders advocated leaving the nationalists to fight the Japanese and using the time to recuperate. Mao disagreed. The Japanese could not possibly defeat and occupy a vast country like China for long. Once they left, the communists would have grown rusty if they had been out of the combat for several years. and would be ill prepared to reopen their struggle with the nationalists. To fight a formidable foe like the Japanese, in fact, would be the perfect training for the communist ragtag army. Mao's plan was adopted, and it worked. By the time the Japanese finally retreated, the communists had gained the fighting experience that helped them defeat the nationalists. Years later, a Japanese visitor tried to apologize to Mao for his country's invasion of China. Mao interrupted. "Should I not thank you instead? Without a worthy opponent, he explained, a man or group cannot grow stronger." Mao's strategy of constant conflict has several key components. First, be certain that in the long run you will emerge victorious. Never pick a fight with someone you are not sure you can defeat, as Mao knew the Japanese would be defeated in time. Second, if you have no apparent enemies, you must sometimes set up a convenient target, even turning a friend into an enemy. Mao used this tactic time and again in politics. Third, use such enemies to define your cause more clearly to the public, even framing it as struggle of good against evil. Mao actually encouraged China's disagreement with the Soviet Union and the United States without clear-cut enemies. He believed his people would lose any sense of what Chinese communists meant. A sharply defined enemy is a far stronger argument for your side than all the words you can possibly put together. Never let the presence of enemies upset or distress you. You are far better off with a declared opponent or two than not knowing where your real enemies lie. The man of power welcomes conflict, using enemies to enhance his reputation as a sure-footed fighter who can be relied upon in times of uncertainty. How much more we have? We have one page. Sorry it's so long. Okay. Reversal. Although it is generally best not to mix work with friendship, there are times when a friend can be used to greater effect than an enemy. A man of power, for example, often has dirty work that has to be done, but for the sake of appearances, it is generally preferable to have other people do it for him. Friends often do this the best, since their affection for him makes them willing to take chances. Also, if your plans go awry for some reason, you can use a friend as a convenient scapegoat. This fall of the favorite was a trick often used by kings and sovereigns. They would let their closest friend at court take the fall for a mistake, since the public would not believe that they would deliberately sacrifice a friend for such a purpose. Of course, after you play that card, you have lost your friend forever. It is best then to reserve the scapegoat role for someone who is close to you, but not too close. Finally, the problem about working with friends is that it confuses the boundaries and distances that working requires. But if both partners in the arrangement understand the dangers involved, a friend often can be employed to great effect. You must never let your guard down in such a venture. However, always be on lookout for any signs of emotional disturbance such as envy and ingratitude. Nothing is stable in the realm of power, and even the closest of friends can be transformed into the worst of enemies. Okay. And then next is Law 3, conceal your intentions. Judgment. Keep people off balance and in the dark by never revealing the purpose behind your actions. If they have no clue what you are up to, they cannot prepare a defense. Guide them far enough down the wrong path, envelop them in an end of smoke, and by the time they realize your intentions, it will be too late. So, with that, we are going to stop here. Thoughts about the chapter. I'm sorry, my eyes started watering. Like, I don't know. But thoughts about the chapter. Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely can see how having your friends close and your enemies closer, or like even in just being wary of your friends and understanding that you're probably gonna get more loyalty from someone who was your enemy than someone who's your friend. Yeah, like I can kind of resonate with that. There have been people in my life where I just didn't want to work with them because something happened in the past, but after coming together, making up and stuff, and that process, it sucks kind of trying to having to be the bigger person. But I think if you look at it with the outlook of, okay, in the long run, this is just a move. This is just a move and a board to kind of set up my pieces and like gain pawns and pieces, right? Like as I said in the first video, to apply this book, you can't really be thinking empathetically. like to fully apply this book to every facet of its being, and and the thoughts and like stuff behind it, you can't be empathetic and use these laws to its fullest. There are definitely things that like your morality, when you're very empathetic, your morality will clash with that part. So um your homework, yeah, I'm gonna start doing homework and stuff. Your homework for this week is be observant. I want you to like observe the world, like observe yourself and what you do and your actions from a third person perspective, and then observe the actions of others, and then how that person, if that person is a friend or an enemy to you, and then how can you use that person, um, if this, morally, this doesn't resonate with you, then don't. But try to see how you can use the people around you in your life, and use and apply these laws, right? So for the first law, remember the first law: never outshine the master. See how you can kind of prop the people up around you, give other people some credit, and kind of make them, and try to curry favor. This is what I want you to do. I want you to curry favor among people around you, right? Never outshine the master. Give other people credit. Uh, make people feel good. Okay, like try to boost up people, like fluff people up, but not in an obvious way. Okay. The second one, I want you to do that, as well as making sure you observe, like from a third person, like observe yourself from a third person point of view, and try to reconcile with an enemy, and use that person, and kind of put them on payroll. Okay, you see it all the time, people paying off cops and stuff, right? Like, it's a reason that works, but they can pay off cops, but their friends will snitch in jail. Anyways, that's beside this point. If you made it this far, go ahead, like, subscribe. I appreciate you for viewing my videos and all this. I appreciate you for being here with me. Road to 100 likes. I mean, 100 follows, subscribers. Uh, just a chill day. Y'all be safe. Y'all have a good rest of y'all day. All right, or a good night. Okay. Yeah.